Hello, I'm Julian Whittle from Cumbria Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here with Kevin Thistlethwaite, one of the advisors at Cumbria Business Growth Hub, to talk about opportunities for businesses to supply the public sector. Now, Kevin, despite the austerity cuts of recent years, the public sector is still a major player in Cumbria. We have 7 local authorities, the Lake District National Park, there's a major Defra presence in the county, and of course we've got the University of Cumbria. And nationally, I think the government spends around 700 billion a year. So we're talking about a huge potential market for businesses. What's stopping us from taking advantage of it? What are the obstacles that SMEs face in meeting the procurement criteria of public sector organisations?
Well, Julian, that's a cracking question to start with. There are obstacles, but they're nowhere near as big as many SMEs think. I think perception that it is just too difficult and will take too much time, and of course then will cost too much money, and that perception is the biggest obstacle we have to overcome.
All right, that's interesting. I know the government wants more small businesses to win government contracts. I think it's got a target that a third of procurement spending goes to SMEs by 2020.
That's correct.
What have they done to make it easier for SMEs to bid for work?
Well, they're not going to drop their standards, firstly, and I think that's absolutely right and proper. If we're using public money, we want to make sure that we're getting the best people, that we're buying the best people to deliver the services. So they're not going to drop their standards. But what they have done already is you can go online, they've produced templates, they've produced toolkits that will help SMEs prepare themselves. And of course here at the Chamber of Commerce we've got the Growth Hub advisors who are also available free of charge, and all of this is free of charge, to help the businesses both get themselves match ready, if you like, ready to deliver government contracts, and also to help them bid and make sure that what they put in their bids is winning the work for them.
So specifically, how can the Growth Hub help? I mean, is it, we were talking about obstacles a minute ago, and you said there was more about perception, but there will be things like, there'll be accreditations, will there, in some cases? There'll be certain standards that the public sector might demand that you wouldn't necessarily get when you're dealing with another business.
You're absolutely right. And although you may not get them when dealing with other businesses, they do appreciate companies who have those standards. So it's not just a case of getting the standards in place around things like health and safety, quality assurance, HR policies such as modern slavery, equality, etc. They're not just for public sector contracts. Most companies these days, they're looking for that as well. We all want to work with the best quality folks and best quality companies. So the Chamber can help you. They can help SMEs to produce these documents, to get the accreditations that they need. We've got advisors who are experts in most of the areas, certainly health and safety, quality. Yes, there's still some work for the SMEs to do, but having that guide, having someone who can take the rough draft away and then polish it and get it to be a more effective communication document, we've got all that here.
So it's interesting. What you're really saying there, I think, is that the best practice for tendering for public sector contracts is probably equally true when you're dealing with larger private sector organisations. So if you're ready for one, you're ready for the other.
Said much better than I did. Yes, very articulate. Exactly right. Good practice is good practice.
Now, public sector organisations are required to put contracts out to tender, aren't they? This is to ensure they're getting value for public money. I think the phrase "best value" is one of the buzz phrases in local government. How does that process work?
Okay, well, they are required to put contracts out to tender, There's a number of factors that they take into consideration, though, and not everything goes out for a full formal tender. It depends on the value of the contract, how much they intend spending with the contractor. If it's small value, then quite often the tender process is simply 3 informal telephone quotations. There's no hard and fast rule at the low value end of procurement in the public sector. The rules are set by the organisations themselves. We've devolved financial authority to the lowest levels. So whilst there's government guidelines around it, each local authority, each NHS trust will have its own rules and its own limits in place. So some may be £10,000, others may only be £1,000 for that level of contract of tendering.
So that's interesting. So it's not maybe as bureaucratic as some businesses suspect when they're dealing with the public sector.
Not at all. Not for small value contracts. Of course, as we get higher up the value chain, we then, quite rightly, we have more checks that need to be put in place by the public sector to make sure, essentially, they're looking at the risk. And the main risk is, will this contractor deliver what we're expecting them to deliver? And if you can answer that question with evidence, then you're 50% of the way there to winning a public sector contract.
Are contracts normally awarded to the lowest bidder, or are they allowed to consider other criteria? If you like?
That's another one of the myths, actually.
Well, let's knock them on the head, I guess.
Yeah, because I've been successful several times working with companies and where we've won work and we were not the lowest bidder. But we demonstrated why we were going to be charging more than the lowest bidder. What was it that the customer was going to get in addition for the money? How? And one of the things that I persuade, I hope, my clients to do is include the workings out in the tender document. Show how you've come to that price.
Yeah.
And when you demonstrate that the price is £10,000 higher than the lowest price, the customer can see why, and then they can take a decision based around the risk.
Yeah, I mean the phrase is best value, not necessarily cheapest. So I can see that. Another thing that I hear anecdotally from businesses is, there's no point in us tendering for work with the council because they always award the contract to the same people. Now, why do you think that perception is? Is it a misconception, or is it possibly that actually some businesses, because they've got their head around this tendering process, they're the ones that keep winning the contracts?
Okay, 2 questions, so 2 answers.
Yeah.
Why do I think it is? It's another myth. I have never found any evidence that councils always award contracts to the same people just because of who they are. However, there is something in the fact that some businesses really understand the tendering process, and because they understand the tendering process, they win the contracts. Now, what do they understand about it? The main thing they understand is that they have to answer the questions fully. They have to provide evidence. Just to be able to say, yes, we can renovate an old chapel somewhere, fine. But what they have to then do is say, and here is where we've done it, or where we've done similar types of activity before, and provide that evidence. And that is then a strong answer. And I think a lot of companies are disappointed where they say, but we told them we could do the work. Yes, they did, but they didn't provide the evidence.
Yeah, that should be common sense really, but it's surprising perhaps how many slip up on that. Now, where can businesses find information on public sector contract opportunities?
Okay, the source that I use, there are many sources, and you can pay some organisations who will search for you and give you a report once a week, once a day, once a month, showing the opportunities that are out there. I just go to the .gov website, the contracts website on .gov.uk, and everything over £10,000 has to be advertised on that website.
Right. Oh, that's brilliant then, isn't it?
And there'll be a link which will take you, sadly, to another website. And often you have to then register when you get to that other website. So here in the Northwest, one of the most popular ones with local government is called the Chest. And it will take you, the link will take you there, you register on the Chest, and then you'll be able to download all the documents for that opportunity.
Right. And what is the digital marketplace?
I'm really pleased you asked. If your business has anything to do with technology, digital technology in particular, so if it's building websites, if it's designing apps, if it's designing new software packages, if it's installing software, if it's providing hardware, the whole range that we'd associate with the technology sector, including communications as well, which I don't differentiate these days, that IT is communications, whether it's voice or digital. The government has set up the Digital Services Catalogue, essentially, which is the digital marketplace. And it's quite simple. You go online, you go onto the digital marketplace, you register. Again, you need to provide the evidence to show that your company is accredited, is capable of building a website. And that might be with some track record, but also with accreditations to ISO quality standards, for instance. And then you're up there, and buyers in the public sector will then search that website and usually invite you to submit a quotation or a tender for a piece of work.
Right. And people can just Google that, can they? Digital marketplace.
If you just put digital marketplace into Google, it will come up straight away. Good.
Now, I know that many public sector procurers use the web to source suppliers. Is there anything that businesses should have on their website to tick their boxes, as it were? And is there anything else businesses can do in general terms to make themselves more appealing to public sector buyers?
Okay, well, firstly, I think it's occasionally public sector procurement teams will use the web to search for suppliers, but actually it's quite rare.
Right.
Mostly public sector procurement teams and their customers internally within large organisations will go to the web to look at your website to see that you exist. And to see that you are credible. That's where they'll go to look. Again, it's about reducing the risk. They're looking for evidence when they come to your website that you have done similar work before. So that leads us into, so what sort of content should we look at on our websites when we're looking at a public sector market? Track record, descriptions of jobs that you've done before, but talk about what value your company added to that project, what you did on the project, and not about the project. So you may say a project we worked on was the new corporate information system for Cumbria County Council. Great, but lots of companies worked on that. What did your company do, and what challenges did you meet, and how did you overcome them? Because that's the word you were using, Julian, which is the added value. that demonstrates the added value. And then the other things that you need on there are, if you've got some client testimonials, they're always very powerful. And again, your accreditations.
Yeah.
And you don't need much more than that. In the design of the website, think about those public sector customers who are going to come on and look, and make sure the website's designed to make it easy for them to find this information. They don't need to dig 5 or 6 pages before they come to it.
Fair enough, actually. It's what we were saying earlier, isn't it? That's really best practice as well when you're dealing with private sector customers. It's
absolutely, but it's surprising how many of the folks that we work with here at the Growth Hub sadly don't do that.
Well, that's great. Thanks very much indeed, Kevin.
It's a pleasure.